When I went to see Raya and the Last Dragon, I was not expecting to be surprised. But it did quickly find a spot among my favorite movies, which are my favorite movies because of how they surprised me. They're able to keep me guessing. And not that this one kept me guessing in terms of the plot. That's kind of predictable, actually. But it did catch me off guard with how in touch it was with our world and its problems. The movie juggles the blurry conflicts that we all feel, like distrust and betrayal, prejudice versus precaution, growing division between people. How do you handle all these things? And the movie tries to address that. It's a really well done film. Its greatest critique, however, the one I have heard the most about and felt myself, is that it is too naive, which you probably felt in the end of the film. I mean, really, is the answer to a divided world full of dangerous liars and manipulators, really to be more trusting. No matter how you try to work that out in your head, I think it's kind of ridiculous. And it sort of spoils the film, especially after being shown on more than one occasion how dangerous trust can be. Being more trusting is not always wise. It does not always pan out, and it often has disastrous ramifications. It's a shame that such an aware movie has such an unaware principle. Unless trust isn't actually the main point. We misunderstand Sisu's role in the movie, and because of it, many of us misunderstand the point of the story altogether. The primary principle is not to just start trusting everyone. The actual lesson is far more believable, and I think worth embodying. Our first clue is personally one of my favorite details in the film. The hero is prejudiced. She's not just prejudiced, but she's relatably prejudiced, and that's the part I love. This was the first surprise for me. Prejudice and racism, they're supposed to be the signs of villains, not the attributes of Disney princesses. We're supposed to see ourselves in these stories, identify with the heroes. Nobody wants to identify with somebody who is so shallow. Most of us probably don't have a problem acknowledging judgment and hatred and how they breed division, and we see that in other people. Less of us are willing to admit where we are judgmental and hateful and are more likely to defend ourselves than confess our sins in this area. But the movie aims to take us there. It helps us acknowledge that we are like Raya, that Raya is like us, and it makes us feel safe enough to do so. You could have gotten a simpler hero, one who was so perfect they had not an ounce of prejudice in them, and they were going to show the world how being this way is just wrong. But that's not a real person. The movie understands the pain of betrayal and the justification for being distrustful, and we're meant to be guarded against a too simple solution, like just be more trusting. Maybe if Raya was less relatable, less real, they could get away with something so naive, but she's not, so they can't. And that brings us to our second clue, Sisu. Sisu is painfully naive, and that is a problem. She has no idea how dangerous the real world is. She's a lot like child Raya, who gives too much trust too fast. We sense right away that her ignorance is dangerous, and that can cause much more harm than good. Yet we also sense truth in her character. Despite her ignorance, she believes that most people want to be treated well, that not everyone is out to get you, and making friends is a better way to gain influence than, well, just about anything. Sisu is a combination of ignorance and wisdom, much like Raya is a combination of prejudice and wisdom. Raya knows the danger of naivety, she's lived it firsthand. Sisu knows the chaos of a world with no trust, while experiencing the power of grace. You should sense that they need each other, and somehow having them together should help balance them out, and maybe find the solution to saving their world. So here's the problem. Doesn't the movie position Sisu as this guiding light for Raya? You just said they're supposed to balance each other, but it feels more like the movie is saying Raya is supposed to become Sisu. Well, remember, the movie makes a point of highlighting Sisu's naivety. It is dangerous. So dangerous that Raya has to save Sisu on multiple occasions. What the movie doesn't tell us, it shows us. Without Raya there, the last dragon doesn't stand a chance against the world. Sisu needs Raya. However, Raya's distrust is just as dangerous. At least that's what the movie is wagering. That's the more heavy-handed point to the film. It gives Sisu a lot of credit in the movie in her conversations with Raya. Take this scene, for example.
Yeah, well, the world's broken. You can't trust anyone.
But Sisu counters.
Or maybe the world's broken because you don't trust anyone.
And this key line.
If we're just honest with her, deep down, I got a feeling she wants to fix the world as much as we do.
Sisu is not arguing for blindly trusting an enemy. She's wagering that Namaari doesn't have to be an enemy. And this is a main point in the film. It implies that the world cannot move forward unless Raya is able to change and adapt. It shows Sisu's perspective being true a few times afterward, like when she is protecting Raya, but then she sees Namaari's eyes. And again, when Sisu seems to be on the verge of winning Namaari's trust, turning an enemy into an ally, only to die. Not because Namaari choked, but because Raya never fully trusted Sisu. That's why Namaari says at the very end, "You're just as responsible for her death as I am." In the film, the world breaks twice. First, because Raya is too naive. Second, because Raya is too distrusting. So yes, Sisu is leading Raya somewhere, it's just not to becoming naive like Sisu. It implies that there's something in the middle, a way to recognize the dangers of trust without forsaking the ability to turn enemies into friends. She is leading Raya back to Benja.
You sound just like my ba.
Well, he sounds like a smart man.
Yeah, he was.
Benja is one of my all-time favorite characters. Benja is the balance between naivety and skepticism, the wisdom that enables people to guard themselves from manipulation while not giving up on his belief in people. Look at what he's trying to teach Raya before the Druun destroy everything. First, how to protect what matters. Second, how to see people for more than their labels. Third, and most importantly, how to love your enemies even after you have been hurt by them. Benja is not advocating for trusting everyone. We can tell because of how guarded the gem is. He knows the danger of letting the heart fall into the wrong hands, and he's prepared to fight and I think even kill to prevent it. Yet he demonstrates such discernment and control to know when to pull out the sword and when to say, "Not this time." He understands that the protection of the gem is very important, but it is not the only thing the world needs. Benja does not advocate for blindly trusting enemies. He advocates for something greater, something his world needs, and something ours needs too. The intentional pursuit of reconciliation. I would argue that this is the point of the movie, or the key principle. It does, for sure, focus on trust so much. Look at all the times it says so.
Trust one another.
I trusted someone I shouldn't have.
Wow, you really got some trust issues.
You can't trust anyone.
I trust you, Namaari.
It's about trust.
What?
So you might say the point of the movie is trust, isn't it? This might sound like splitting hairs, but the film isn't saying we need to be blindly opening ourselves up to danger. It is, however, saying we need a world where we can trust each other again. Trust is the goal in mind, the eventual result. But how do you get there? That's where reconciliation comes in. And that's what we see through Benja, the pursuit of reconciliation so that the world can be one rather than divided. Reconciliation is making right what was previously wrong between two people. It never happens on accident, and it is rarely deserved. It goes hand in hand with forgiveness. The trick about reconciliation is you can forgive someone, but still know they're not trustworthy. To reconcile, both parties have to come together, and if a single one of them decides they're not interested in making the relationship right, then the reconciliation is impossible, and therefore, so is a trusting relationship. Because it is hard to accomplish, many people don't bother doing it, but we know deep down inside that we need it. And that's why Benja is so focused on it. He understands what's at stake. Sure, maybe their enemies don't deserve their friendship, but if they only focus on what they do and do not deserve, they are unlikely to save their world. It is like Benja said.
If we don't stop and learn to trust one another again, it's only a matter of time before we tear each other apart. But someone has to take the first step.
And this is what she has lost sight of, even completely rejected. You can see it in how she understands what happened.
Look, my father blindly trusted people, and now he's stoned.
Now we know that that is not actually the truth. Benja invites the tribes for a meal, the beginning of relationship, but he leaves the kingdom and its greatest vulnerabilities completely guarded. In fact, he's just recently added to his list of guardians. Raya is the one who overtrusts. The world didn't break because the chief was naive, it broke because the child was naive. And you might say, that's not fair. She's just doing what Benja was teaching her to do. But I would wager that Raya is forgetting the importance of what she was first shown, which is protecting what's important. The question after that is whether or not we will love or trust someone ever again, let alone our enemies. What will you do to protect yourself? That's Raya's question, just like it's our question. That's why Sisu is there. She reminds us of the difficult but imperative guide from Ba, to love your enemies, especially in a divided world. Because without the reconciliation, things will never be made right. And that's why these guys are here. Did you notice when Raya tells her story in the beginning, they really don't explain why the dragons didn't come back. And they also don't really explain why they do come back in the end. Believe it or not, this is not a lazy writing thing. I think this is actually a genius little detail, and it's another clue to understanding the point of the movie.
What are June anyways?
A plague, born from human discord.
Up until now, you're led to believe that the Droon are the real problem in the movie, but the Droon are not the real problem. They are a terrible symptom. The real problem is the discord between people and the deepening division. The gem is not meant to be the thing that saves everyone. It was the thing that gave them a fighting chance to finish the job. An example of what coming together can do if only they would take it all the way. This is why the plot sort of forces Raya to make friends along the way. Imagine if Raya and Sisu did manage to get the gem back together on their own. Namari's mother makes a key point when she says,
"When everyone comes back, who do you think they'll come for?"
The Droon might be pacified, but the hatred between tribes would be greater than ever. Ergo, the problem of division remains. And this is why the dragons have not returned and why they would not return, because mankind had yet to reconcile. Fortunately, in the end, Raya stops resisting her father's guidance. When all hope seems lost and all hearts are now stone, she decides to let her guard down. She trusts in his last words not to give up on them. And in doing so, Namari, like Sisu before her, is surprised to receive what she did not deserve, having been given grace instead of condemnation. An enemy is turned into an ally, and this simple but difficult step toward reconciliation gives birth to the restoration of the entire world. It is wonderfully gospel. So there you have it. Raya and the Last Dragon is not about blind trust. It's about our need for intentional reconciliation. I find that to be a way more compelling principle. All in all, I think it's a great movie. not just for entertainment's sake, but it is worth embodying. And I'm thankful that Disney would give us something like this. And I'm thankful that you listened this far. Thank you for watching this video, listening to my essay. I hope that it was worth your time, and I especially hope to share another one with you very soon.